Hello and welcome to Humanizing Lives. We are meeting again here today to discuss an issue that again impacts your life very strongly. You may have noticed it or you may not have noticed it, but irrespective of how, whether you've experienced it, you have acknowledged it, you have noticed it or not, it touches your life. If not your life, if you are young enough, if you're not yet married, or in a partnership which is of a very intimate romantic kind, then you have definitely experienced it in your parents relationship or relationship of your relatives. A very important and a very integral part of most of our lives in India and across the world, marriage happens to be the very bond that we've been taught since we were kids to kind of bank on after a point. It is one of those relationships that has a lot of emotional investment of the entire family and especially of an individual. Uh, so we are going to be discussing today communication in marriage. We have with us Ruchi Rana. Ruchi Rana is a clinical psychologist based out of Pune. Ruchi Rana is also somebody who has had her RECBT training from Albert Ellis Institute in the USA. And she's a director and founder of Namaste Psychology. Ruchi Rana has had a long experience of counseling people online and offline. We welcome you on board, Ruchi. Thank you so much for
Hi.
agreeing.
Hi. Good evening, Namita.
Ruchi, before we move on with the interview, I would like you to please introduce yourself in your own words.
Okay,
See,
so let me introduce myself in the terms of what I'm doing now in current situation in pandemic. I'm doing a lot of work of creating awareness through my page. So it would be really nice if people can, visit that and know more about it. Apart from that, educationally, I've completed my master's in psychology and then gone abroad to do a lot of work in psychotherapy. So that's one way to look at it. And past 2, 3 years, I've gained more, let's say advancement in my work by being a counselor for infertility counseling, working more with parents and adolescents. So these are some of the fortes I work with. And the other major forte for past 9 years has been working as a marriage counselor, as a couple counselor, a relationship counselor. So that's what I do in short.
Lovely. So Ruchi happens to be our go-to girl for all kinds of marital communication problems you're facing, and even if you're not facing any, it never really bothers anyone to get a little bit of information here and there. I would request
Absolutely.
you at this point to please write down your questions in the chat, and we will take it up as we go along the interview. Ruchi, we welcome you again. And,
Thank you.
I just would like to kind of start with understanding the whole idea of marriage. It is something which has a lot of fanfare out there, and most of our lives are invested around one day, getting married. I would like to ask you, is there something called perfect marriage? Is there really anything like that?
Okay, so yeah, so again, I think you've introduced the topic. You already said what we are going to focus more on. So the aspect is communication. So,
Yeah.
all right, so talking about perfect marriage, yes, we do hear people talking about it, and we do hear people saying that, I see that couple being ideal and perfect. So, what they typically mean is things that they don't, or things that they feel lack in their marriage, and it's there in somebody else. That's when they feel that this is more idealistic or perfect. Of course, they tend to forget there could be some nuances there too. But
Right.
as a concept, this is very vague. So, if I have to say that what will a perfect marriage, a concept of perfect marriage do, it would probably just create more and more pressure because then you're talking about, trying to achieve those standards which are ideal and which will never falter. So there is I would say there is nothing like perfect marriage, but people do say that. So, not to offend them, I would probably say that then we call it adaptive marriage, just like one of my counselor friends sort of says it. So, adaptive marriage is where I probably look at it as more flexible, somewhere where you sort of wait for two people to sort of gradually, through their fault, mistakes, and whatever their strengths are, build a marriage which is more sort of plausible to live together with. So I would say that I would call it as more adaptive or flexible marriage.
लवली ध्यान दें आप, रुचि यहाँ हमें बताना चाहते हैं कि जो परफेक्ट मैरिज का आइडिया लेकर हम चलते हैं ऐसा कुछ होता नहीं है वास्तविकता में। अमूमन आपको वक्त के साथ खुद को ढालना पड़ता है, रिश्तों के हिसाब से, इंसान के हिसाब से खुद को ढालना पड़ता है। So she would term it as adaptive marriage. Now that's an interesting point, and that brings me to my another very, very curious point, and also the very central aspect of the discussion today, Ruchi. When we are dreaming of marriage, and I think everybody, marriage or no marriage, but strong partnership, when we've all at some point or the other dreamt of it, and rather invested a very, very huge chunk of our emotional side into it. What happens is that we are never really considering about the other side, right? We only consider about the other side in terms of the qualities that we would want in the other person. We never consider the fact that the other person will also have requirements. That's something that's blank in our lives. And that brings me to that point, Ruchi, where you bring in the adaptive aspect of it. A lot of people go around saying that communication is the foundation on which a marriage is based. I mean, that's true of all relationships in general. But how true is it of marriage? I mean, does it actually work like that? I mean, would you like to explain that in a little bit of detail when we're talking about communication in marriage?
Yeah, so just like you mentioned, all the relationships that human beings are attached to need communication. So when a dog is also not responding back to us, we still communicate in some or the other manner, right? So then any living being around, we want to communicate. So yes, in a way, then we can say communication is a bridge to building up relationships, and particularly in marriage, because then we are talking about a concept. Let's just take this analogy of bridge, right? When we say communication is a bridge is built when you are unable to reach to two ends very naturally, right? I mean, you want to go from one end to another end, so you can't reach just naturally there. That's why you build something that is a bridge. Right. So if we look at that as communication, then communication is a very important aspect on that bridge of marriage, right? And we could say that it could just be somewhere where the bridge begins to build. Because then again, we are talking about two people coming together, like we all know, from different backgrounds, different values, different opinions, difference of even liking food, right? So there are so many differences, and then we are talking about coming together. So then communication becomes the easiest mode of, getting to know each other, getting to know your strengths, weaknesses, nuances, likes, dislikes. So yes, in that way it is. And as they say, great marriages involve great communication. So it is a very good bridge to begin your relationship with. Yeah, that's how I say communication is a bridge to building a good marriage. Yeah.
Lovely. So we have Boho Girl here. That the Boho Girl, it's more of a comment here. She says, unfortunately, the whole ritualistic aspect of marriage or the process of getting married is very, very shallow. Then she further adds on, and society seems to adopt the idea of marriage as a sacrifice, as a sacrificing few things. Probably what she means is that ultimately one party, has to adapt to the conditions that will be brought out. The entire institution of marriage, I think, requires for a woman to leave her house and go to another household, and a lot is expected out of this new being, and in the process sacrifice a lot, in the process give up a lot of her own personality. Is that what you're trying to say, Boho Girl? I mean, I just want a confirmation on that so that Ruchi can start answering.
So I think, like you said, it's more like a comment that she's just commenting, or her opinion about
Right.
marriage is an aspect. So I think she's just putting her opinion down there. So
Lovely.
that's
So
fine.
we move
Yeah.
on until she
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
So Ruchi, on that account, I mean, on that note, are there helpful and healthy ways of communication, or are there
Hmm.
unhealthy ways of communication as well? I would want you to throw a light on most of the both of these aspects in a marriage. What could go wrong, and how to then rectify it?
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, yes, we will talk. I was going to mention about unhealthy when you asked about healthy too. But let's just talk about some of the healthy ways of communication. Under umbrella of healthy ways of communication comes, where you can very openly talk about your opinions and give your thoughts and place your thoughts and not be judged. At the same time, you don't feel attacked or you don't attack the other person and demean the other person. Also, healthy communication will have where you are able to sort of, just listen to the other person at times and just not respond every time. Right. So, this few ways of just understanding what healthy communication can look like. Before I move on to just pointing out a lot of different healthy communications, let me just say that three important sort of mistakes that people do when they cannot have healthy communication is one is ending up, somewhere or the other yelling back at spouse or yelling at spouse. So what does yelling do typically? When you yell in a, while talking or conversing, somewhere or the other, you're diverting from the goal of the reason why you started the communication. Second, you are making that person just hear noise, and when you hear noise, you sort of don't listen to what's happening, what the person is talking. So then when you yell at a spouse or at your partner, you're just saying that my yelling is more important than what I'm talking. So then the person is not listening again. So then what you're going to feel is you're going to feel dismissed, not heard. But the reality is that the person won't be able to hear you. So that's what one of the errors or problems in communication that happens. Second, that typically happens is having an attitude of competition. In the terms that whenever you are in disagreement, you do not take it as two different opinions, but you take it as, I would say, that this is something that I want and this is what is going to happen. So
Right.
then, one way to look at competition there is, no matter what you're saying, what you're doing is the only right way, right? And why would a person do that? Like, if I think more and more on that, then I feel one of the reasons would be that the person's emotional insecurity, where he feels that if the person knows my vulnerability, right, the
Huh.
person would probably just take that as the vulnerable aspect and win. So it's more of a win-win situation that the person looks at, win and lose situation rather. And other aspect there, that the person when is in competition with the spouse is probably not ready to understand that there is no superior or inferior sort of a thing here in marriage. That's not, you could be better at some skills, which let's look at communication also being one of the skills where you could be better at it, but it doesn't mean the other person needs to be demeaned or you're superior. So these are some aspects where competition comes into place. And the third problem while communication happens is where people start to say that it's about me and it's not about we. So these are few common errors that I see that my clients, like, certainly sort of face. Like, typically I would say, me, meaning they always talk about in sentences about themselves and not about togetherness. So just these three very common errors that I see. Then let's talk about some helpful ways or healthy ways of communication. Yes. So the first of it being, where you check your emotions. So emotion check, pause, and communicate. That's what I call it. So emotion check is first understand whether you're fine to talk and whether the person in front of you is fine to talk. That's also important to check, right? Like, you just can't start talking because you feel like. So you need to check whether the other person is there with you. In case you feel that that isn't, then that's of course not a good time to start communicating. But with yourself, check your emotion. In case you feel very overwhelmed, take a pause. In that pause, probably go take a walk, breathe, listen to music, all these other ways of calming yourself down. Very important. Sometimes what helps me is writing down what I'm all the cloud of thoughts that's happening. So first thing is emotion check, pause, and then communicate. So that the idea, the ideal thing that is that the goal that you want to communicate about, that particular thing, you can get through rather than going all over the place and then just talking about emotionally about it. Right. So, like, let's say you're overwhelmed, so you're anxious. So your whole topic will just, revolve around how you are anxious and not revolve around what you exactly want to talk. Okay.
Right.
So that's one way to look at it. Second way to look at it is, like I said, don't end up into competition. Whatever you're conversing is not the end of the world. You can communicate again. You can converse again. So don't end up into competitions if possible. So again, it's not a win and lose situation. It's a win and win situation. Third thing, all right. You can see me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You can hear me also. All right. Okay. Third thing that I find very important is, have a lot of I statements. I feel, right? I feel this way. I feel like this. I want this. I would prefer this. This will make it more easier again to communicate. All right. Just a second now. Is there? No, it's fine. They can hear me. Just my people at, my parents and all are saying that hearing is a problem. So I just want viewers to tell me whether they can hear me clearly so that,
I can hear you clearly, but I would request the viewers to please give your consent as well.
Yeah, all right. Till then, I'll just, sort of go ahead gradually. Then be open to suggestions. When I say be open to suggestions, again, it means that when there is a disagreement, don't forget it's a disagreement. It's two different opinions coming from two different individuals. It's not, that the disagreement does not need to end into an argument, because when you're arguing, then you're only saying that what you're saying is the only way. Right? So try and see that it's a disagreement, which means difference of opinions, which means try to resort to other steps, like I have been telling you, to communicate, like, take a pause, write down if you can't understand what to say, and how to, sort of reciprocate what the person is saying. Other healthy ways could be, try and have languages, different kind of languages, as simple as if there is something very serious you want to talk, have a language which is more assertive, right? With a little more of you talking about what you want or what you like. Love language is language where you kind of feel for the person and you express mostly in that words which makes the other person also feel loved, or at least you try to. Right. So there are different kind of languages that I've seen couples have their own. Some language, like I'll mention, like love languages, financial languages, languages about household, how to talk about the household problems related to children. And it's very wonderful to observe that. So observe your kind of languages. How are you in communicating also? A lot of people tend to have one form of communication everywhere. So try to adapt to different kinds of communication, right? As simple as, if you go back 2 years ago, then probably I remember my spouse telling me, or my family members telling me, that you don't need to be a counselor at home. And that's when I used to realize that, I'm just always, trying to help others. I don't need to do that. Like, I would probably need the help back. So remembering that you can adapt to different ways. Then very important, that's what I feel. Try to be vulnerable at times. I mean, it's okay to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is not going to bite you back. It just means that you are accepting as a human that you can end up doing mistakes. So if you end up doing mistakes, you're ready to accept the other one also can do the mistakes. And at the same time, our human being will have strengths and weaknesses and likes and dislikes. So the more you accept, you're letting the other one also understand that person also can accept being like that. So try and be vulnerable. Vulnerable is definitely not going to do anything wrong. These are few ways I find, healthy communication can work, or at least begin. I won't go into a lot of communication styles because there is more to this, but that's going to take a long time.
Please go on. All right, we'll come to that again. I want to take up a couple of, can you hear me? Looks like
yes, I can. Okay. No, I just couldn't for a second.
Sure. I'll pick up a couple of questions, Ruchi, for you that have come up while we were discussing this. So there is Parminder, who it's more of a statement. There's mostly communication turn into an argument. And that could be because of ego. Then we have Richa, who's asking a question and says, when does one stop communicating? Like, when does one put a stop to this effort of communicating their wills or opinions to the partner. She says, when can something be termed as over communicating? And then we have Boho girl writing here. She says, okay, so she says that these suggestions that you just gave us seem more textbook or maybe technical in understanding. She says, moment we get into relationships, emotions overpower the whole dynamics and with the other person, and of course the element of the other person. So I would request you to suggest more relatable solutions. But then she also adds, however, I appreciate your suggestions here. I wish we are more emotionally capable, but that's not the case with most of us, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So you would like to respond to those, Ruchi?
Definitely. So, what I understand from her is when she's talking about communication as a concern, let's just say that when I'm not able to personalize, give a lot of solutions, that's because, yes, I'm considering here a lot of couples. With different kind of personalities. So when I'm giving here certain ideas, this is more in general what communication can look like in marriage. When we want to talk in more personal or more relatable to a individual or that couple, I think that will more happen in a session where it's more, counseling, that will get more difficult to, relate to one personality. So I would really request the Boho girl to ask me in case there is a particular question more that she can, find relatable answer to. Apart from that,
Over
yes,
communication.
yeah,
Over communication.
yeah. So I would say that what she mentioned about emotionally capable, yes, I think we are getting there. I think we are focusing gradually. The whole community is focusing more and more what they're feeling. And I'm seeing that difference as a counselor because I see a lot of people coming at the, like let's just say the stage one of their marital issues. And I think that's where I feel that we are getting more emotionally capable as, human beings to understand where and when do we need help. So I would really request her if there is anything specific question that she wants to ask, it would help me to answer to her. And then you said, about when does one stop communicating? So I think when there are these biases, about feeling lack of self-esteem or feeling where that I don't think people can understand me, or I don't think that people will get to know me, or where they start to feel that people are not listening to me and people have never heard. So a lot of listening biases or the past biases come into picture, and they feel that just by communicating I'm not going to be able to get anything because that's not happened to me before. So that's one reason, when few reasons I would say, when people stop communicating, right? And can there be something as being over communicative? Uh, so I would just say that that terminology makes sense in the terms that yes, sometimes people are just talking and not listening. So not taking a pause. So yes, in that way, over communication can happen. I think that's what I can answer to. Is there anything else you would want to add, Namita?
No, thank you, Ruchi. I think I would want to quickly translate that into Hindi because
Sure.
that kind of reaches out to larger audience, and marriage affects us all, irrespective of
Yeah.
religion. So quickly in 2 minutes, if you don't mind, translate that. So इन्होंने रुचि ने संवाद के ऊपर पूरा एक पिटारा हमारे लिए खोल दिया है. इस पिटारे पर रुचि ने दो तरीके से बात की है और दोनों चीजों को समझने की कोशिश की है कि कहाँ पर आपके बात करने का तरीका आपके लिए घातक साबित हो रहा है और कुछ नहीं. सारी की सारी दिक्कत की जो जड़ है वहां कहीं छिपी हुई है. तो रुचि कहती है, अगर आप मैं केंद्रित बात कर रहे हैं, आपके हर दिक्कत में मैं बार बार बोला जा रहा है, तो कहीं ना कहीं आप वो हम का नजरिया पीछे छोड़ दे रहा है. एक तो ये कह रही है. दूसरी ये कह रही है बात कि देखिए कहीं आप चिल्ला न रहे, क्योंकि अगर आप चिल्लाते हैं तो सामने वाला आपकी बात बोलना, सुनना और समझना दोनों रोक देता है. उसे सिर्फ आपका चिल्लाना नजर आ रहा होता है. तो इस बात का ध्यान रखिए. और ये जो कम्युनिकेशन इश्यूज है, जहां आप हम को मैं पर ले जा रहे हैं, आप अपनी आवाज तेज कर दे रहे हैं, या कई बार जो है आप गलतियां और मिस्टेक्स के नजरिए से बात को प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं, ऐसी सूरत में वो हमें अपने सजेशंस भी दे रहे हैं. वो कहती है थोड़ा थमिए, अपनी भावनाओं को देखिए, थोड़ा सा समझिए और उसके बाद बात करिए. और अगर वाकई आप सोल्यूशन ढूंढना चाहते हैं तो सिर्फ सोल्यूशन की तरफ ध्यान दीजिए, अपनी भावनाओं पर नहीं। आपको गुस्सा आ रहा है, आपको खराब लग रहा है, आपको अकेला लग रहा है, उस पर ध्यान ना दें। रुचि ये भी आपको साथ ही साथ बताती चलती है कि ऐसी सूरत में कई बार आप अगर बैठकर तसल्ली से अपनी भाषा बना लेते हैं, और मोहब्बत की भाषा हो सकती, वो आपके दर्द की भाषा हो सकती, पर वो एक ऐसी भाषा हो जो आप और आपका साथी समझता हो। रुचि कहती है कई और भाषाएं भी होती है, आर्थिक भाषा भी होती है, सामाजिक भाषा भी होती है। कई बार हमने देखा है कि कई बार खासकर जो ओल्डर जनरेशन होता था वो आंखों आंखों में ही एकदम पूरे भरे हुए हॉल में आपस में बात करता था, और किसी को कुछ पता नहीं चला। अगली बार हम देखे तो वो बाहर जा रहे क्योंकि बस हो गया, दोनों बोर हो गए। उन भाषाओं का इस्तेमाल करिए। रुचि, I will take this comment again and then we can move on with the next section.
I was just reading that.
I still see women have idea that partners should be transparent to them and share everything to them. For example, Facebook password, Instagram bank details, and all of this sounds extremely silly, and it's basically sabotaging as well, in her opinion, to the individual, and not only to the privacy, but also, you know, it's a forced syncing system, she said. It's a forced syncing mechanism. Sure, Richie, please, if you would like to respond to that.
So like you just mentioned, you know, I do agree that that's her opinion and she's feeling this. So I would say, yes, I mean, these are certain boundaries that you sort of, you know, build in a relationship as you go through these problems, and where you build a boundary of understanding whether you're okay, and to share, and you have the complete right to share or not share. As a, you know, this is definitely your private space, but these are boundaries that you set and you decide in a relationship. So in case you feel that in sharing that is you know, sort of sabotaging, or feeling that the other person doesn't trust you, you definitely, again, these all these other different small ways that I'm talking about, you know, communicating this problem will help you to be able to communicate this to your spouse, you know, that I'm feeling this. I feel if you ask for a password from me, this is what I feel, right? So you can share that way.
रुचि, हम अब इतने देर से बात कर रहे हैं और एक बात पे बार बार जो जा रहा है, जो हम सबके अख्तियार में नहीं होता है, जिसको दिस नॉट इन आवर कंट्रोल, इज लिसनिंग. How important is listening, and can we actually work on that? Please let us know about that in a marriage.
Yes, absolutely. Listening, like they say, you know, is very important. We would say that there are two ways people listen. Just very commonly, I'll just, you know, sort of tell you that one way is active listening, one way is passive. We all must have heard that. Just what is active listening? So active listening is where the person is attentive. You know, eye to eye contact is more real. The person is also responding, reflecting. The person is also at the same time, you know, asking you in case he doesn't or she doesn't understand what you're saying. So that's more active listening. That's more being present there. Passive listening is where you're on a computer, you're on the mobile, and you just say that, you know, my ears are open, I'm listening. So that's passive listening. That's not really active listening. So passive listening is not, again, I'm not saying that that's not the way, but that is not definitely something that's called actively being present there and trying to resolve or help or just listen and empathize. So this is not going to happen a lot with passive listening. So how do you, you know, understand whether the person is actively listening or not? One, again, like I said, you know, ask the person whether he's ready or she's ready. So don't forget that when you want the person to actively listen to you, you need to just ask the person whether he's ready, because sometimes the person may not be ready to listen because he's into something, talking about something else, or being overwhelmed by his day, his rituals, his other, you know, problems through the day, or her problems. So I would just say that ask if the person is ready to listen. Again, don't forget that you may have disagreements, but again, the goal is that the other person listens to you and you listen back. So try to be more active there. And I've always seen that a lot of times people do expect a lot of emotional response back when they are emotionally saying something. Yes, you can probably achieve that. But again, asking the other person that I'm going to talk about this would be more easier to sort of get the response back. May not match to the emotional response you wanted, but at least could be closer if the other person tries. But like we said some time back, it's a bridge where we are building in gradually, understanding how we can communicate to each other. Right? So I would say that active listening would help more. So you have few times in the day that you listen actively to your partner, few days in a week that you do, but whenever you do, try to be more active in listening. Like y'all are listening today, and I'm listening to Namita asking you, Namita is listening back. This is more active listening, right? So try and do this if you could, whenever you want to communicate.
Right. Lovely, lovely. So सुनना जरूरी है, और सुनने के लिए मत सुनिए, इसलिए सुनिए क्योंकि आप वाकई सुन रहे हैं। फोन में ना लगे रहें, टीवी में ना लगे रहें, न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते हुए ना सुने, इसलिए सुनिए क्योंकि वो सामने वाला इंसान जो कह रहा है वो आपके लिए, और इसीलिए वो उसको जो फील हो रहा है वो आपके लिए समझना जरूरी। साथ रहना है, साथ देना है, तो ये समझना पड़ेगा कि सामने वाले को किन बातों से दर्द हो रहा है और किन बातों से उसको परेशानियां हो रही है। खैर आगे बढ़ते हैं। आपने बताया रुचि कि आप लगभग बेटर पार्ट ऑफ अ डिकेड आप मैरिज काउंसलिंग कर रही हैं। At this point, Ruchi, I would request you to please tell us what is it that you usually generally face during, like general complaints that you face during the counseling, and what is the problem that people walk to you with mostly, and the suggestions that you give them, of course, is what we are looking
Sure.
for.
Sure. So, just talking about listening, I just want to end with a small note that, I believe that, listening is about, it's not about arguing again or ending up into, not achieving the goal to talk back. Listening is where you sit and listen to the person. So it sounds a difficult task, but we've been doing it for a long time, and we also do it when we sort of go out with our friends, right? Like for example, you call up a friend and tell the friend to come out and meet at a coffee shop because you want to chat and share. So that's listening, where you kind of wait, listen, talk. So you can do that also for your listening, time when you want the spouse to listen. So you can actually set up a time and a space to do that. Coming back to your question, where you said that commonly seen problems that I see when people come to me for marriage counseling. Yeah, in communication, let me specify that so it will be more easier. Problems that I normally see in communication. So one, I would say that where the partner or, my spouse is not listening completely, just in between stops me, probably doesn't let me just end what I'm trying to talk, always starts with what should be like. This is how it should be like, or always starts with, this is what I've always seen, so it should be like this. Never respects, dismisses what I'm saying, defensive, loud noises, always makes an, just starts yelling when there is, a difference of opinion, comparison with somebody or the other, so always in communication, comparing me or comparing one with somebody that person knows. Very, very commonly that I see is opinion is being dismissed. Like whenever I try to give an opinion, the other person just doesn't listen to it completely. So these are very commonly seen communication related problems. A lot of them, another common thing that I see is where people say that in past, or my mother or my father, they talk like this, and so always constantly ending up comparing. Though it could be in a good way, if you want to do that, it could be helpful where you tell that this is what I like, rather than comparing and saying that this is what it is and this is how it should be. So these are the few issues that I find in communication with the couples that I see. If I have to tell you that a little groundwork that I end up doing if I get, and most likely I end up getting communication as one of the problems in marriage counseling. So let's just say that if you have to work on such a, delicate matter, the first groundwork that as a counselor I would do is one, first understand when they've come for couple counseling, do they have a similar goal that they want to achieve, through counseling? I mean, if the goals are different, then I'm sure it's going to be difficult even for me to get them to one page. Yes, then that would be one of the work that I would do, that I would see different goals, but then somewhere or the other get them to a similar goal that they want to achieve in their marriage. Second, then I would probably look into, probably asking them that if the goals are now similar, look at counseling as a building time, where skills that one person or your spouse or you are not good at, or are unable to, work on that. This is the time where you work, right? Counseling is where you will build your skill. So everything is a skill. Communication is a skill. Trying to work on conflict is a skill. Cooking is skill. Everything is a skill, right? So looking at everything as a skill makes the clients also understand that I'm not going to pick up right or wrong. I'm just going to pick up when there is a need you feel to build this skill better, or your spouse feels, right? That's when it is a relationship counseling. So this is some basic groundwork that I would do. Then I would probably go on to, let's just say, some ways to deal with communication problem, is where I will help the clients to sort of make a problem list, right? In communication, what are the problems that they are facing in communication with the spouse, and then put an hierarchy to it, that number one would be the easiest of the problem, number 5 or 10, whatever is the list number, would be the most difficult that I'm unable to deal with. And then we begin somewhere midway where the person feels that probably 1 or 2 or 3 are still manageable, but the fourth is not at all. So that's where I begin. Right. The next is I also try and work around communication errors. Some errors like, we call, these are errors that I'm talking more technical, but just cause you all should know. One is overgeneralizing, constantly saying that nothing good can happen. You just can't talk good ever with me. You're just always going to be like this. So just in a way, generalizing all the problems. Second is all or nothing. All or nothing is what? Just, sort of looking at everything in black and white. Because you cannot do now, you will never be able to do it. Right. Then I would probably, if I can find these communication errors, I would help clients to understand why is it an error. Right. And then probably telling you 2 techniques. One way to work on that is making them understand that do not attach every topic, every discussion that you are in to your self-esteem or to yourself. So the discussion that you are in is about both of you, or about what you like, but it's not about who you are. Right? So even if in your communication, the other person points at you and says that you're not good at that, it just means that today probably you're not good at that, but it doesn't mean you'll never be good at that. So try and detach from, attaching yourself to that argument, rather attaching that this communication today that we're having is about wanting to end up into some consequence which is going to be better. Right? So try and attach your self-esteem separately. And because it's more about self, what you understand about self, it's not about what others understand about you, right? So try and keep that separate. Then what I would say is, like I said, just probably having a list of problems and working on the little difficult one with your counselor, with your friends, just not always counselor, but also asking your friends to help you out, right? Then I would say something that I find very important is scheduling the argument or the conversation. Whenever you think that this is something that's going to probably lead to difference of opinion, because you already know the person, or you already find that in your thoughts you're already anxious to talk about it, schedule it. Like, sort of tell the person that today at 9:30, if you have time, can we talk about it? Like, there is something that I want to talk, and that's something very important to me. So scheduling the argument will help a lot too. That will just make you more prepared to talk, and the other person too. Right. So these are some ways.
Wow. I mean, as easy as it may sound, but definitely not easy. A lot of work there. Because of scarcity of time, I would be translating all of this as a conclusion towards the end of the session. Moving on to the next question. So these are the questions that were related to regular working or trying to work out the relationship issues. Then there are certain relationships where the communication completely stops. The communication completely stops. I would want to understand when do people stop communicating, and why does that happen?
So, like I mentioned some time back, that the person may have had a lot of past biases, where the person feels that until now, or a lot of times it has happened that whenever I've tried to talk assertively, people don't understand, or my friends never did, or my earlier relationships. So they start to have these biases about themselves, where they feel people won't understand me, people won't take me seriously, or I won't be able to communicate the problem exactly the way I want, or generally I don't get respect. So these few biases that will come in their way to communicate, and at the same time few biases that have built in the relationship due to communication errors or faulty communications already in the relationship. So then they choose not to talk, because according to them just talking will lead to more arguments, and the goal is they do not want more arguments. The problem is that they want to stop arguing, because they cannot find anything better from the argument coming out and coming to a consensus. So they choose to stop talking. And I've seen this also, another common thing that comes in, that they choose not to talk much, to sort of anxiously avoid the problem or avoid the communication. That's when they shut down to talk. So these are few biases that I have commonly seen.
That happens too. So,
Yeah.
another word that I keep coming across, in fact, also in practice, a lot of times I have seen people go through this, is codependence. And can you please tell us how codependence or codependent personality can create problems in moving on to a more healthy relationship, or a communication that can bring a more healthy relationship? How does codependence become a deterrent to that?
All right. So then we are talking about one of the personality styles, where out of a lot of personality style, codependent has been recently taken a lot of, lot of light is thrown on that recently. Though it's been there for a long time, but let me just tell you what is codependency, and then probably tell you why will they have more issues in communication. So one, codependent is a person who is, wanting to feel that the partner needs me. At the same time, that person is somebody, codependent is a person who wants the partner. So he's in need. He wants to be needed, or she wants to be needed, and is dependent, just like the word says. So this is in short codependent. What will a codependent person look like? A codependent person will look like a person who's unable to tell or communicate assertively, or tell the problems, or tell the likes and dislikes. At the same time, they may find it difficult to be able to take decisions, right? So then decision making will be a problem. Apart from that, they will find it difficult to trust, and this also could be because of low self-esteem. So these are few things about codependent personalities. How will communication be a problem? Yes, of course, because already they are unable to communicate, talk, right? So few things that I probably start when I find out that this looks like a codependent personality, or a person rather, a codependent style of personality. I always tell them to sort of try to be honest to themselves, honest in the terms of the inabilities that they are currently observing in themselves, and try to be honest with the person also, that I'm not able to communicate, right? This will at least tell the person that there is something that this person wants to tell me, but is unable to, rather than always shying away or being avoidant about it. Because if you be avoidant about it, then the other person is just naturally assuming, right, that this is what you like. As simple as if somebody asks you in a restaurant that what do you want to eat, and a codependent person will be like whatever you like. Second time, third time, if this goes on, the fourth time, the other person is probably not going to ask what you want, because he assumes that the codependent person likes what I like, or probably just likes. So then it's, imagine on such a small scale, and then on the bigger scale, it's just going to increase the problems, because then that codependent person is human too. So that person is somewhere or the other gradually going to feel neglected, right? Not given, what do you say, taken for granted. Commonly these people feel that. But the problem is that they are unable to communicate. So if they can be honest about that, it would help. Yes, we do recommend people to take help then, because then they're already lacking these small skills that need to be able to communicate. You need to be feeling, that I can communicate, need to be feeling that these are my thoughts, be able to sort of, put the thoughts correctly and then talk, right? So if you're lacking there already, then that needs a little help. And then we always tell them to try and build a support system rather than just focusing on your partner. Like have your support system, which was available earlier also, your friends, your family, your brother, your sister. Do Yes, I mean, your spouse is currently the center part with you in your circle of life, but then you had many and you have many. And in case you don't, build, so build more relationships apart from just one relationship, right? I typically call this relationship of, kind where you have relationship with a spouse of going out, chatting, sitting at home, sharing your dinner, sharing your stuff. But you also have friends with whom you go out for coffee, or you have friends with whom you probably see some movies that your partner may not like to end up. So somehow building a support system like this, right? So I believe this because very simply, if I tell you that, my spouse is not very, very comfortable watching very, serious and very emotional packed movies. So if I don't have a support system to do that with me, I will do it alone for some time, but then I would probably stop it, right? It's rather build a support system for small, small things that you like to do. So we always tell codependent personalities that this would help them. Another that, very important, do not attach each topic, each argument as your self-esteem or you being targeted or your lack. So this is some way that I would probably start working on with a codependent personality. And then the strategies remain same for marriage counseling. It's just that in the beginning, the groundwork changes looking at the personality. Right? Yeah.
That was very, very informative. Ruchi, I'll just check for the comments ones if there is any, and then move on to the next
Sure.
section.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is due to the total, Boho Girl says, due to the total character limitation here, I'm not being able to construe my concerns here. Thanks, Namita, for decoding my messages. News. Thanks a lot, Ruchi. So the Boho Girl is saying that because of the limitation in the number of words that you can use here on Insta messages, she's not being able to present her idea in a more coherent fashion. But
I'm thank you to her to sort of comment and bring some things to light. This is how you sort of communicate and tell your concerns. So thank you to her too.
Lovely. To my viewers, I will urge you all once again, if it is not too personal, if it is not too disturbing, and there is a concern that you would like to bring up here to Ruchi, please do that. Ruchi will be more than happy to answer you. She's here for you. Also, moving on, Ruchi, while the listeners come up with their questions, is so, when all of this is happening, relationship in itself takes a toll on a person. Even the most healthiest, emotionally healthiest people can have their own set of problems in the process of adjustment in marriage, right? It's a very intimate relationship on all levels to start with. What I want to understand here is, when does one realize or understand that this is finally time for counseling in a marriage? When should one literally see it as a red flag and walk into the counseling session? And the other thing is, there are so many psychotherapists around. How do you decide whether you can go to one for your marriage counseling or not? Is everybody fit for marriage counseling, or are there types as well? These are two things that I would want you to please address for our audience.
Sure. So I would say that the time to seek help from a relationship expert or a counselor would be when
Yes, network was unstable, so we lost you for a bit.
Yeah, even I, yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
All right. So the first thing which you have to start noticing is when you realize that the relationship is not helping you to grow. It's sort of debilitating you or taking away all the individuality at the same time. There's no togetherness. And rather than problem once in a week or once in a month, there are problems like every day. You kind of end up facing it every day, and they don't resolve, and they don't end up into any other better way of dealing with it, or sort of coming out with a consensus which is more useful to both the partners. So that's one time to recognize. At the same time, when you realize that a lot of people around you are also informing you that there is something not okay between two, so seek help. So there are people who will tell you if you have that sort of a network. Third is when you understand that it's not only debilitating you as a person, but it's also sort of restricting you to build, to build relationships around, to build a relationship with the partner himself in the way you thought could make you feel togetherness. So these are three important aspects. At the same time, all these other, communication problem, when you are not able to even ask for help, let's just say a financial help or a help where you want that you lack here. So please, can you help me out here? So any sort of, asking or communication or telling becomes a problem, right? So this is where you seek help. And even if the other person doesn't understand there is a requirement, but if you do, then it's a good time to just connect to a counselor. The counselor can probably help you out to understand how to convey it to your other partner who's unable to, understand that there is a need. So what I have seen in my practice, typically both of them come up together because there has been a lot of awareness happening, luckily for us. But at the same time, people, as the counseling goes ahead, sometimes one person starts to feel that I don't think this, I need this. That's fine. At least the other person can still continue and do some repair attempts, rather than just dismissing it and saying that if he's not doing, then what's the use of marriage counseling? It's fine. You can turn it up into individual counseling, work on the problems that you are facing individually, and that will automatically turn into a problem solving for the marriage. That's one way to look at it. And the second answer for the question that you asked me is about, how do we understand which counselor to go to? So very important, there is no as such like a degree that says that she's a relationship counselor. So you can put that under your, board or something. But then as a client or as somebody who's, whom you've been referred by, you can always ask them. Ask the counselors whether you're trained to be a marriage counselor, whether you're trained to be a relationship counselor. Have you handled cases with marriage counseling and relationship counseling? And I believe that all of us will be, honest enough to tell that we are or we aren't, right? Yes, a lot of years of experience matters, but at the same time, education or, sort of revising and revisiting certain new ways of dealing with marriage counseling also, which means just educating yourself constantly as a counselor will also help. So, as, outsider, you won't understand much, but you have the right to ask a counselor whether she is or he is trained in this. So that's one way of looking. And I would request all the, counselors, psychologists here online to understand that in case you don't find a lot of ways to learn more about relationship counseling, approach people who are already relationship counselors. They will help you out, but don't stop there, because there is a lot of research that keeps happening in marriage counseling. And if you're not updated with that, you will keep on to resorting the old ways of how to do marriage counseling. And the marriage now looks different than what it used to be earlier, right? So we need to be even knowing that culturally what are changes happening.
True. Lovely. With that, we come to the end of our discussion. मैंने आपसे कहा था कि मैं हिंदी में आपको फटाफट 2 मिनटों में सब कुछ समझाने की कोशिश करूंगी। रुचि ने हमें बहुत सारी बातें बताई, लेकिन कुछ बातें जिनको एहतियातन पर आपको ध्यान रखना है एक शादी में, वो ये है कि देखिए, जरा थोड़ा सा देखिए, थोड़ा सा ध्यान दें, कहीं आपको बहुत अकेला तो नहीं लग रहा, कभी आप बहुत ज्यादा निर्भर तो नहीं है सामने वाले पर, अपने दोस्तों को, अपने परिवार को, जो विवाह से पहले आपके पास हुआ करते थे, जिनके साथ आपने जिंदगी जी थी, उनको ना छोड़। एक तो ये कह रही है, दूसरा हमें ये भी बता रही है कि जब हम बात करने के बारे में जाते हैं, तो इन्होंने 9 सालों तक जो वैवाहिक कपल्स होते हैं, जो जोड़े होते हैं, उनको उन्होंने समझाने की और काउंसिल करने की कोशिश की है और ट्रेन किया है, और पर्सनालिटी के जो कैरेक्टर्स है उसको बताना ही अपने आप में बड़ी बात होती है। उसके बाद अगर आपको शादी चलानी है तो आप कोशिश करने लगते हैं। उस दौरान मैंने उनसे जब पूछा कि आपने किन दिक्कतों का सामना किया है, कैसे कंप्लेन्स आपके पास आते रहे हैं, तो रुचि कहती है कि बहुत बार जो एक अमूमन जो कांस्टेंट कंप्लेन उनके पास आता रहता है वो यही आता रहता है कि भाई सामने वाला या तो सुन नहीं रहा है, या वो जो चाहते हैं जिंदगी से वो उन्हें शादी में नहीं मिल रहा है। तो एक बार अपने पार्टनर के साथ बैठिए और उनसे पूछिए क्या वो भी अपनी जिंदगी का वही पिक्चर बनाते हैं, वही सूरत हाल बताते हैं जो आपको भी चाहिए फ्यूचर में। अगर ये क्लियर हो जाता है तो आपके लिए बहुत सारी बातें अमूमन आसान हो जाती है। और अगर कहीं भी आपको ऐसा लग रहा है कि आपको वैल्यू नहीं मिल रही है, आपको खुश नहीं फील हो रहा है, चाहे जो भी कारण हो, आप गलत हो, सामने वाला गलत हो, ये हो वो हो, सिचुएशन हो, सर्कमस्टांसेस हो, पैसे हो, प्लीज चले जाइए मदद के लिए। और अगर डिसाइड करना है कि काउंसलर कौन कर सकता है मैरिज काउंसलिंग, तो आप सीधे काउंसलर से पूछें कि क्या आप ऐसा करते हैं, क्या आपकी ट्रेनिंग पूरी है। आपको जवाब मिल जाएगा और आप उनसे मदद ले सकते हैं। Ruchi, with that, I would like to also thank you for agreeing to be with us here, for agreeing to discuss this very complicated and enormous topic in everybody's life. And I hope we can do this again in a more detailed,
Definitely.
taking up one issue at a time, so that we've just introduced communication in marriage today. Let's just move on and see how it goes for us with more topics and integrities of marriage. But thank you for
Absolutely.
being with us here, and I would like you to conclude this in 2 words, and then we'll say bye.
All right. So, conclude this in 2 words is, um, do not shy away from seeking help. We are there to help you. One, there are your friends, and there is a lot of people around who would want to help you out. And second, don't forget that the marriage is help. It's for you to grow with
Yeah.
your partner. So if it is not helping you, then work on it and give a timeline to work on it. It just can't be, you work on one issue for years together. But yes,
Lost the voice.
now can you hear me? Yeah. So the second thing that I said was, that try and, see that you're growing in the relationship, and the other partner is also growing with you. So I think that's very important when you look at marriage. So these are two things that I would want to conclude to.
Beautiful. So Ruchi again reasserts my point. Stay happy, be happy. Marriage, no marriage, partnership, no partnership. You staying happy and attempting to work every relationship of your life is important. Growth, she said, is important. On that point, I would request you to please keep smiling, and bright and wide smiles, please. If you cannot, please get in touch with Humanizing Life. We will help you smile brighter and shinier.